Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, read on the question. To find the overall transfer function for this given block diagram. So what's the first step here? So here we have a summation point. So the first step is we can able to split this summation point, as well as we can able to move this. So look at it, G2 and G4 are in parallel. So to make this as a parallel connection, in between that we have an intermediate point here, that we call it as takeoff points. So that we need to shift either towards left side or right side. So for that, here we have an RFS with negative feedback. So right in the second step, what is the first step? So we need to split this, as well as we need to shift this takeoff point from left to right. So once we shift the takeoff point from left to right, so just check the first rules. So what's the alteration we need to perform for this block? Check it out. So here we can able to split this. So instead of here we have a single summation point for a forward path as well as for a feedback path that we can able to split into two summation points. So this single summation point, I'm going to split it into two parts, two summation points. Here we have a G5. So that for the first summation point, so both are of positive feedback only. So here also we have a positive symbol, and here also written that as a positive symbol. And here we have a H1. And this one, this particular, so here we have a signal as 1. So here also we have a signal as 1. Here also we have a signal as 1. So I'm going to split that also. And what's the alteration we need to do here? So for a takeoff point, we need to shift from right to left. Either we need to do the multiplication or division of this particular block. First multiplication. So here in this block we have a G2 as a variable, so that we need to make a product with H2, so that we can able to shift this takeoff point this side. So now the next step, these two are in parallel, so write down. Afterwards, this is acting as a feedback path. Here it's a positive sign, so here we have a positive feedback. Write in the positive feedback equation. This one has a parallel equation, and then this one has a negative feedback equation. At the last, we have a negative feedback with a signal as 1. So solve Modi. So what is the parallel equation for this? So this one has a negative feedback. So write down the equation for that. That is G2 by 1 plus GH. Now in the place of H, we have H2 G2. So G divided by 1 plus G, and this one has H. And these two are in parallel. So G4 plus G2. And this is acting as a positive feedback. So that is G5 divided by 1 minus G5 H1. So now make all that in a product format and then write down the negative feedback equation. So make it as a product and then write down the negative feedback with the signal as 1. So this is as a positive feedback. Write down the equation for that. And this one as a parallel connection. So this G4 plus G2. Forward direction. So make all those in a series. So write down the product format. And then write the signal. With that one, make it as a negative feedback. Write the product format. So I'm just going to choose this as a temporary variable x, y, z, so that the final transfer function is g divided by 1 plus g, h is equal to 1. So this is the overall transfer function. Just look at that, we'll explain it once again. So here, normally this G4 and G2 are in parallel connection, but it's not possible to write down the equation directly because in between that we have a takeoff point here. So that intermediate point we need to shift, either move from the summation point or else we need to shift to the left side. So always we prefer for shifting with respect to the blocks. So that once we shift this to the beside this block, so to the left side, so then we need to do the multiplication of whatever the variable that is present in this particular block. So here we have a G2, so that G2 we need to multiply here. So look at here, G2. So now once we shift the takeoff point, so G4 and G2 are in parallel connection, and these two are acting as a feedback. And this summation point, so this feedback as well as this forward path, both are to the single summation point with a positive symbol. So we need to split the summation point for two different operations. One is for a parallel connection, another one is for a feedback connection. So just I'm going to split both summation points. So and then retain the same symbol. Here also we have a positive, and here also we have a positive. So that this becomes the positive feedback, and this one becomes the positive forward path. So according to that, write down the equations. At the last, all are in series. So just make a product of those, and then it is signal 1. So just write down the negative feedback equation. If you have any doubts, ask me regarding this problem. Those who are having doubt, they can clarify. ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ? Shall I move on to the next one? Anybody is having doubt? Srinidhi? Srinidhi? Anybody is having doubt? Srinidhi?
Yes, sir.
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತನಪ್ಪ?
Yes, sir.
ಅನಿಲ್ ಕುಮಾರ್?
ಎಸ್ ಸರ್.
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತಾ?
ಹಾಂ ಸರ್.
ಕಾರ್ತಿಕ್?
Yes, sir.
ಅರ್ಥ ಆಯ್ತನ? ಎರಡದ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್. Read this question. And now Pooja, row number 411. Pooja. Raksha.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So what is the feedback elements across this particular point at this position? At this particular position, what is the feedback element here? Is it only H2 or H1, H2? What is the signal here at these two positions?
Negative feedback.
It's
H1
in a
and
variable.
H2.
Which variable is present across these two? So here we have a H1, and here at this position. So here we have a H1, H2. So at this particular position, we have a H1 and H2. So afterwards, at this position, what are the variables that are present across this position?
H1, H2,
Here at this
H3.
position. So H1, H2, H3. So here, which looks complex, so we need to make it as a simple. So here also we have a crisscross connection. So look at here, we have a crisscross feedback elements, so that we need to make it as a straight lines. So that to do in that manner, just interchange these two summation points. So just interchange these two summation points. So just look at here how actually it works. So now I'm interchanging both the elements. So here we have a single line that passed through all the feedbacks. So now I'm making it a separate. So this line, this particular, so I'm interchange that. So this one is the first and this one is the second. So now this one becomes the first and this one is the second. So the first one I'm writing here. So for that we have a feedback element as H1. So just write down that as H1. I'm splitting this line. So second one I have written here. So that feedback element is H2 afterwards. So here it's a product of H1 and H2. So this is a product of H1 and H2, and right on the last feedback line. So this is a product of H1, H2, and H3. So here also we have a negative, here also we have a negative, here also we have a negative. And this one has R of S, and this one has Y of S. So just I have interchanged these two summation points. So the first one with the first one, look at here, for the first one. So okay, this is the first one. For the first one, we have a H1. So I'm writing that same as H1 here. For the second one, I have H1, H2. So for the second one, I have H2 and H2. And the last one is H1, H2, H3. So let's try to that as H1, H2, H3. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಈ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಕೇಳಿ. ಸೊ ಒಂದ್ಸಲ ಕಾಂಪ್ಲೆಕ್ಸ್ ಇರೋದು ಸಿಂಪಲ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಟ್ರೆ ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಈಸಿ ಆಗ್ತಾ ಹೋಗುತ್ತೆ. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಸ್ಟೆಪ್ ಇಂಪಾರ್ಟೆಂಟ್. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಇದು? Those who have not understood, clarify the doubts.
ಸರ್ ಇನ್ನೊಂದು ಸರಿ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಡಿ ಸರ್, ಗೊತ್ತಾಗ್ತಾ ಇಲ್ಲ.
ಸೊ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಎರಡು ಸಮೇಷನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇದೆ, ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತೇನಪ್ಪ? ಹಲೋ.
ಎಸ್ ಸರ್, ಎಸ್ ಸರ್.
ಸೊ ಈ ಎರಡು ಸಮೇಷನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಇಂಟರ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಂತ ಇದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಇದು ಕ್ರಿಸ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ ಈ ತರ. ಸೊ ನನಗೆ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ, ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್ ಲೈನ್ಸ್ ಇಲ್ಲ ಈ ತರ. ಸೊ ಇಟ್ಸ್ ಇನ್ ಎ ಕ್ರಿಸ್ ಕ್ರಾಸ್ ಮ್ಯಾನರ್. ಸೊ ದಟ್ ವಿ ನೀಡ್ ಟು ಮೇಕ್ ಇಟ್ ಆಸ್ ಎ ಸ್ಟ್ರೈಟ್. ಸೊ ಜಸ್ಟ್ ಐ ಆಮ್ ಗೋಯಿಂಗ್ ಟು ಇಂಟರ್ಚೇಂಜ್ ದೀಸ್ ಟು ಸಮೇಷನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್. ಸೊ ಇದೆರಡು ಸಮೇಷನ್ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ಸ್ ನೋಡಿ, ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿದೆ. ನಾನು ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಂತ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ, ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಇಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಕೊಂತ ಇದ್ದೀನಿ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಗೆ ಯಾವ ಎಲಿಮೆಂಟ್ ಹೋಗಿದೆ?
H1.
H1 ಹೋಗಿದೆ. ಸೊ ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಗೆ H1 ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡ.
ಹಾ ಸರ್.
ಸೆಕೆಂಡ್ ಒನ್ ಗೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ?
H1 and H2.
H1 and H2 ಬರ್ಕೊಂಡ. H1 H2.
ಹಾ.
ಲಾಸ್ಟ್ ಒನ್ ಗೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ ಇಲ್ಲಿ? ಅದು ನೀನು ಮುಟ್ಟಿಲ್ಲ, ಅದು ಹಂಗೆ ಇದೆ.
ಹಾ.
ಸೊ ಅದಕ್ಕೆ ಏನಾಗಿದೆ? ಈ ಪಾಯಿಂಟ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಏನಿದೆ?
ಸರ್ H3.
H3 ಇದೆ. H3 ಇಂದ ಹಿಂದೆ ಏನಿದೆ?
H2 ಮತ್ತೆ H1.
H2 H1. ಸೊ H1 H2 H3 ಗೊತ್ತಾಯ್ತಾ?
ಹಾ ಸರ್.
ಮತ್ತೆ ಯಾರಿಗಾರು ಡೌಟ್ ಇದೆಯಾ ಇದು? Anybody is having doubt? ನಾನು ನೆಕ್ಸ್ಟ್ ಕ್ವಶನ್ಸ್ ಕೇಳ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಕೂತ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. ಕ್ಲಾಸಿಂದ ರಿಮೂವ್ ಮಾಡ್ತಾ ಹೋಗ್ತೀನಿ, ಟೆಸ್ಟ್ ಕೊಡಲ್ಲ ನಾನು. ಯಾರಿಗೆ ಅರ್ಥ ಆಗಿಲ್ಲ ಕೇಳಿ. And the next step is, so this H1 is acting as a feedback, so write down the equation for this. And for that H1 H2 is acting as a feedback, write down the equation and then make a product and then write down the equation. Solve ಮಾಡಿ. So for the first one, G2 with H1, so we have a feedback equation. So G2 divided by 1 plus G2 H1, and then it remains with H1 H2, the negative feedback. And the last one is H1 H2 H3. And for the next one, so this is acting as a feedback. So write down the negative feedback equation for this block, for this loop. So I'm just going to choose this as a temporary variable x. So x divided by 1 plus x into H1 H2. Last ಈಗ x ವೇರಿಯಬಲ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಸಬ್ಸ್ಟಿಟ್ಯೂಟ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, ಸುಮ್ಮನೆ ಹಂಗೆ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡ್ಬಿಡಿ. And here we have a H1 H2 H3. And these are in a product format. So that is G1 x 4 divided by 1 plus x H1 H2. For that we have a feedback as H1 H2 H3. I'm just choosing this as a temporary variable y. So the final transfer function is y divided by 1 plus y into H1 H2 H3. So this is the overall transfer function. X variable substitute ಮಾಡಬೇಕು, y variable substitute ಮಾಡಬೇಕು. Next LCM ತಗೊಂಡು simplify ಮಾಡಿ write down the simplified equation. So for simplification it carries 2 marks. ಸಿಂಪ್ಲಿಫೈ ಮಾಡಿ ನೀಟಾಗಿ. So the next one, try to simplify by yourself. Read on this question. Srinidhi. Srinidhi.
Yes, sir.
Mute ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ.
Yes, sir.
All of you read on this question. Skamda? Skamda?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the first step here? ಏನ್ ಮಾಡ್ಬೋದು? ಸ್ಕಂದ? ಸ್ಕಂದ? ಇಲ್ಲಿ ರೆಸ್ಪಾನ್ಸ್ what?
Hello.
Yeah, tell me. Hello. Hmm? Sandeep? Sandeep?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, what's the first step?
Sir, in between G1 and G2, that feedback network separate mode.
So, in between G1 and G2, which one?
Sir, ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಇಂಟು ಫೀಡ್ಬ್ಯಾಕ್ ಇದೆಯಲ್ಲ.
Summation point.
Yes, sir.
What about this takeoff point?
Sir,
So here we have a takeoff point in between G2 and G3. So where we need to shift either to the right or to the left to make this G2 and G3 are in series.
Sir, H1 negative H3.
So once we shift this takeoff point from GT to a G3, what's the alteration we need to do here? Left and right shift ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ takeoff point na left ಇಂದ right shift ಮಾಡಿದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ಚೆಕ್ ಮಾಡು. ಫಸ್ಟ್ ಈ ರೂಲ್ಸ್ ಕೊಡ್ತಿದ್ದೀನಿ ನೋಡು. ಡಿವೈಡ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲೈ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ. Takeoff point ಇದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ಲಿ?
Yes, sir.
So once you shift this takeoff point from left to right. So what is the alteration we need to do for this particular block? Chapter starting ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಬರ್ಸಿದೀನಿ ನೋಡು. ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ರೈಟ್ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂತ. ಏನ್ ಮಾಡಬೇಕು? ರಮ್ಯಾ Ramya, what is the alteration we need to do once we shift the takeoff point from left to right?
Multiplication.
Multiplication or division? Check ಮಾಡಿ.
Sir, multiplication.
ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ರೈಟ್ ಗೆ ಹೋದ್ರೆ ಡಿವಿಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ ಮಲ್ಟಿಪ್ಲಿಕೇಶನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೋ, ರೈಟ್ ಇಂದ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಗೆ ಬಂದ್ರೆ ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ? ಇದು ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಇಂದ ರೈಟ್ ಗೆ ಹೋಗ್ತಿದ್ರೆ ರೈಟ್ ಇಂದ ಲೆಫ್ಟ್ ಗೆ ಬರ್ತಾ ಇದೆಯೋ? Are we shifting from left to right or right to left?
Left to right.
So left to right. So left to right means what's the operation I need to do?
Division.
Division. So division of which variable? G2 or G3?
G2 by G3.
G2 by G3 or with the feedback element or with the same element?
Sir, feedback element.
So here we have feedback element as H1. So for H1 we need to do the division operation with G3. And look at here, we have splitted this feedback element H1 to the first summation point as well as to the second summation point. So now we need to do the division operation for both H1 divided by G3. Afterwards here G2 and G3 are in series, so make it as a product and then write down the feedback equation for this. Afterwards this H2, Ramya, H2 is acting as a feedback or forward path?
Sir, feedback path.
So H2 is acting as a feedback path. So once we perform the operation for this and then write down the feedback equation with respect to H2 and then make a series with G1 and then write down the feedback equation and then write down the forward direction. Write down the equations. So here we have a G1. So G2, G3 divided by 1 plus G2, G3 into H1 by G3. So that H2 is acting as a feedback so that we can able to write down in the downwards also. So there is no problem. So here we have a H2. Then here we have H1 G3. H1 divided by G3. Acting as a negative. So that's a positive feedback. And this one is a negative. So afterwards, this H2, write down the negative feedback equation here for this particular loop. And then these two are in series. And then write down the positive feedback equation for this. Just I'm going to choose this as a temporary variable X. So X into G1 divided by so here we have 1 plus x into h2. And this one has a positive feedback. So now I'm going to do this as a y. So that is the feedback equation y divided by 1 minus y into h1 by g3. At the last, is it a forward path or feedback path? And this one G4. Ramya? Ramya?
Yes, sir.
So is it a forward path or feedback path? G4.
Forward path.
So this is a forward path with a negative symbol. So just I'm going to choose this as a Z. So Z minus G4. That is the final transfer function. I do the equation, substitute the equation for x, y as well as for z. Then simplify that. The last write on the simplified equation. Those who are having doubt regarding this problem, can ask any questions. So with this, I'm going to end the class today. So all of you just make your presence in the chat box, and then you can leave the meeting.